Senator Raphael Warnock is the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church of Atlanta, the same church where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. served as pastor, as his father did before him. Raphael Warnock's new book is titled The Crooked Places Made Straight, Reflections on the Moral Meaning of America. And this one's for Reverend Warnock, because this is something I think we need literally spiritual guidance on how to bear this kind of thing. I want to ask you about what happened at the White House this weekend. One of the fighters and performing there, I've never heard of the guy, specifically attacked Michelle Obama viciously, poisonously, by name, in a way that everyone there seemed to enjoy. No objection from Donald Trump. He called the guy outstanding afterwards, as he did all the other performers up there. What do you feel when you hear something like that?
Michelle Obama is one of the most dignified people one could ever meet. She served brilliantly as First Lady of the United States of America. She's a graduate of Princeton and Harvard. It doesn't matter to folks like that. This idea that black women aren't really women and black people aren't really people harkens to the darkest days in our country's history. This is not political speech. This is immoral speech. This is bigotry. This is evil come alive in words, because words have power. And if you can diminish people, if you can say that there's something other, then that opens the door for you to unleash the kind of cruelty that we're seeing under the Trump administration. So it was very painful to hear the reporting about this. You know, I've had the pleasure of being in the presence of the First Lady, but when I see this, I don't just think about her, I think about my own sister. Mm-hmm. I think about my mother. I think about the teachers. I think about the women in my church, you know, who have loved this country through its darkest moments, who've always held on to hope. And here we are. Once again, Donald Trump has unleashed a kind of evil in the ether of the American experience. And this is a moral moment in America. And it's time for people to stand up. We know who he is. If that performer, I don't know him either. He's not worth knowing. He felt a license to do that. Mm-hmm. And there are other folks sitting there. Donald Trump is sitting there, the president of the United States. He didn't condemn it. Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, who I hear will be out tomorrow talking about his conversion experience as a Catholic, mm-hmm. talking about his moral bearing. I want to know what J.D. Vance thinks about the First Lady of the United States being treated in this way and spoken about in such awful terms. He is married himself to a woman of color. How would he feel if someone said this to his wife or said this about his wife? We have to condemn hate and bigotry wherever it shows up. And that's something that I always try to be very, very vigilant about. Hate, however it shows up. You have to condemn it, you have to push back, and you have to remind us that we're stronger when we're able to look into the eyes of our neighbor, even those with whom we disagree, and see that all of us have within ourselves a spark of the divine, see a glimpse of our own humanity, and push us toward the highest in the American creed, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. This administration is at war with the American creed. This brilliant idea that we come from different places and spaces, we are different, and we're held together not by race. We're held together not even by religion, and I'm a deep man of faith and commitment to that. We're held together by an idea that all of us are children of God and that we have a right to be here and make America as great as it can be.
So it's so true that the subtitle of your book, Reflections on the Moral Meaning of America, you know you have a president who has never once reflected on that.
I don't, that's to put it nicely. I mean, he's at war with it.
at war with it.
And so it's a dark moment in our country as we approach this 250th anniversary. You know, the United States of America goes through its moments. There are moments when the democracy expands. There are moments when it contracts. And this is a contraction moment. They're trying to squeeze the voices of voters out of their democracy, black voters, through this awful gerrymandering that the court has approved. They're trying to squeeze the voices of women as they're still trying to pass the SAVE Act, which would disproportionately hurt married women. And we've got to push back, because here is what every mother knows, that contractions are painful, but they are necessary for new birth. And so I'm still holding on to hope. I still believe in America at its best. And I think that through this contraction moment, there is the opportunity to reimagine, to push us closer towards our ideals, which is why I wrote this sermon for the whole country.
It's I'm going to use the title as it appears, your title as it appears on the bio on the jacket of the book, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock. Thank you very much for this book, The Crooked Places Made Straight. I want to get it on camera here. There it is. Reflections on the moral meaning of America. It is a sermon, and it is the kind of thing I was so glad to be holding this in my hand this weekend, both before and after I heard that poison from the White House. This does help. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Bless you. Keep the faith.
Thank you.